Welcome back to the Sunday Power Cat Game Day postgame. Corey Dean, Cole Van Beck, John Kurtz. 55-14 in a rivalry game. K-State with their fourth in a row. And so this one's kind of fun because not only did K-State put it to Kansas, I think you could easily say that they never played a great game. Like, that's the whole thing after post games. Like, K-State really didn't get it going in the first half on offense, but you scored twice on special teams and once on defense. And then in the third quarter, the offense wakes up and you just absolutely trounce Kansas, who's certainly the worst team in the Big 12 and arguably college football. But this was a fun one on a cold Saturday. And just kind of your initial thoughts as K-State just continues to roll with their fourth straight win, John. Yeah,
I think the thing that comes to mind is a conversation I was having with Derek Young yesterday from K-State Online, where he said we were discussing, someone had asked, hey, was this more satisfying than last year's win over Kansas? And I was like, no, I don't think this was more satisfying. I think the difference is last year was really satisfying to be a K-State fan. This year was just really embarrassing to be Kansas and be a Kansas fan. It was about Kansas just embarrassing themselves. I mean, listen, there are a lot of good things that K-State did. I mean, obviously the special teams is impressive. Will Howard in the second half looked really good and the offense looked really good. But for most of that game, it was just K-State just had to stand there and basically accept everything being handed to them on a silver platter. I mean, Kansas was just a mess. I don't know that I've seen a worse coaching moment in college football in the last 10 years than Les Miles punting to Phillip Brooks at the end of the first half. I mean, I just don't understand how that happens. And there was just so much of that. I mean, in the first half alone, it was they gave up 2 return touchdowns. There was a muffed punt. They had a missed field goal. They went for it from their own 39 on fourth down and just ran it up the middle and didn't get it. So many things like that, just handing the game to K-State. It was unbelievable. It was kind of staggering to me how horrid Kansas looked in that game, to be honest.
Yeah, John, KU definitely looked inept in that game. I mean, they had nothing on any side of the football, special teams. It was one of the worst performances I've ever seen. And, I'm starting to think this might be the worst KU football team that we've seen in the 11 years since they've really been struggling since Mark Mangino moved on. I mean, it looked horrific in all aspects of the game, and K-State took advantage of it, especially in the second half. But yeah, when you look at the score at halftime, 34-7, and I was sitting there, I didn't even feel good at all about K-State's performance. And I was really hoping we'd see something in the second half where they looked better and gotten in a groove. And that's what I take away from the game is really that second half. And I know we'll touch on it more, but the fact that Will Howard looked so much more comfortable and got in a groove on the offensive side of the football, because that's been my concern these last few weeks. The offense just hasn't been putting up points, really. They've been relying so much on defense and special teams. And we needed to see something from the offense. And they finally got in a rhythm, and you could see Will Howard's confidence start to really soar when he completed a few passes in a row. And they really took off from there, and he threw some really nice balls. That was definitely his best game, his best 2 quarters of football by far. And you hope it carries over now week to week. You can definitely see the potential with Will Howard, and the game as it starts to slow down for him. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And so that's what I really take away from this. I know it's against a bad KU team, a bad KU defense, but for him to be able to do that, that's very encouraging for looking forward, not only for future years, but the rest of the season.
So we'll get to that offensive performance, especially that third quarter, which was really great. But it was the Phillip Brooks show in the first half, and I mean, it was obviously something that K-State saw on tape. I don't know how or why, like John said, that Kansas continues to punt at that point. So the first return touchdown is after they accepted a penalty and re-kicked, and it gets returned for a touchdown. And then why you don't just launch it into the stands right before halftime, I have no idea either. KU was running a weird formation with only a gunner on one side. K-State obviously saw something they could exploit on tape because it wasn't just 2 return touchdowns. Every punt return by Phillip Brooks went for 40 yards plus, which is just unbelievable. So he's over 180 return yards on 4 kicks. Obviously, he's going to be special teams player of the week for the Big 12, but that's just an unreal performance. K-State's had a history of great punt returners, but this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard. It's like one of those, someone else had asked me, like where does this rank? Is this the best special teams performance of all time in K-State history? And I was like, well, I mean, if we're talking about the numbers, I think there's no question that it would be, but it's hard to balance, like, okay, how much of this is Phillip Brooks had a great day versus just Kansas being totally inept. But obviously you have to give him a lot of credit. And one thing Chris Kleiman talked about after the game is that with Phillip Brooks, we don't think of him typically as being the most explosive playmaker that K-State has, but he's explosive enough, and he is very smart, Kleiman said, with like knowing how to set up blocks and some of the intricacies of actually being a return man, which is something that I think gets lost. A lot of times you feel like, hey, just throw your best athlete back there and everything will be fine. But you get a guy like Phillip Brooks who may not, he's not Malik Knowles. He's not quite Josh Youngblood in terms of explosiveness back there, but clearly he knows what he's doing and he is capable enough of making those plays. And so hats off to him. It was awesome. The crazy part about this is, man, he had 189 punt return yards yesterday. The number one team in the country going into play Saturday had like 140 total punt return yards on the season. So Kansas gave up like 40 more punt return yards to Phillip Brooks in one game than any team had in the season through, whatever, 4, 5, 6 games, depending on what team it was. So, that just underscores to me how bad it is. And I don't want to rip on this guy too much, but not a good day for Jonathan Wallace, who is the special teams coordinator at Kansas. I'm scanning his bio here. So he was on the staff at Bethel in 2018 with Brent Dearman. So Kansas continues to bring guys from the NAIA to be on their coaching staff with Les Miles. That doesn't seem to be working out very well.
Yeah, Corey, John sent that text about the punt statistics yesterday, and I had to follow up with him and ask, am I reading that correctly? You're saying that K-State had more punt return yards than any team on the entire season yesterday? And he was, yes, and it was by far. And John, I don't know if you saw a couple stats from Jesse Newell, Kansas beat writer at the Kansas City Star, but he put out a stat. I was telling Corey off air earlier where K-State came 2 yards shy yesterday in punt return yards, matching what KU has had cumulatively over the last 5 seasons combined in punt return yards. So Phillip Brooks had 189 yards yesterday. KU over the last 5 years has had 191 punt return yards. And then he also had another stat. He had another stat that the Big 12 has not had, I believe, more than 2 40-yard punt returns in a single season in each of the last 5 years, and K-State had 4 yesterday. So they doubled it up in one game compared to what has happened in each of the past 5 seasons. It's that's nuts from what K-State did. Not a lot of teams return punts anymore. You've got the teams that do the rugby-style punts, which kind of takes away the ability to return kicks. And here's K-State just finding a way to get it done still. And yeah, John, I was telling Corey off air, KU on that punt right before halftime, they would have been better off trying to do the Ron Prince thing at Colorado, I believe, in 2007. And I was sitting maybe 2008, actually. I was sitting in the press box when they rolled Josh Freeman out on the near his own goal line and just heaved the ball up out of bounds. And it might have been a friendly clock because I think there was still a second left potentially when that ball hit out of bounds. You would have been better off rolling Jalen Daniels out, letting him run around and throw the ball up than punting the ball in that situation, especially if you're going to just kick it right in the middle of the field. That's just what's nuts to me that they didn't kick it out of bounds like you guys. So
they would have been better off running the K-State, leaving the punter off the field and snapping it through the back of the end zone at Oklahoma would have probably been a better option at that point.
Anything would have been a better option than what Kansas did in that situation. And so, yeah, just but I don't want to take anything away from K-State special teams. We know K-State's got the best special teams in the country, and Stanton Weber, again, we've talked about him before. We probably don't even talk about him enough. Maybe we take it for granted, but they are so good in every aspect, and no one else in college football is at the level that Kansas State has. And, Sean Snyder moved on to USC, and people wondered, would K-State special teams still be as good? Stanton Weber continues to excel in the role he's in. The coaching staff as a whole, I know they're involved as well. They've been great. And the K-State fan base was concerned when Chris Kleiman took over that, would special teams still be emphasized? And look at it. And he gave a great answer yesterday, John, about that.
He did. It was very interesting. I thought it was one of the more interesting sound bites we've gotten from him in a while, where he was asked a good question. I thought Tim Fitzgerald asked him a good question, like, hey, did you reevaluate how you wanted to do special teams when you got here to K-State? Because at North Dakota State, it was not something that they were known for. And he made the point, like, yeah, I did change it, but it's not like we weren't bad. It's not like we were bad with it at North Dakota State, but we just didn't put as much emphasis on it because we were so much better than everybody on offense and defense that the risk of, hey, we're going to try and block a punt, we may rough the punter and lose a first down, or, something disastrous like that happening just wasn't worth it, because we know that as soon as we get the ball back, our offense is going to overwhelm your defense. Whereas says I come here, and that's not the case from a talent level every single year. So you need to find whatever edge that you can find. And then obviously they quickly identified Stanton Weber as being somebody that can be a huge ace in the hole to help out with special teams, and combined forces. Obviously we've seen the results. It's been just absolutely awesome.
Well, the special teams put up 14. The defense scores on a pick 6. So, and that area alone, you outscore Kansas. Offense finally gets it going in the second half, and it was completely different. That third quarter looked nothing like the first half, really. K-State really struggled moving the ball. A lot of penalties, like unusually sloppy in the first half as well. The only touchdown, kind of the short crossing route to the tight end, a couple drops, and some just kind of a mess as far as the offense goes. But third quarter, they come out, and all the rhythm that was missing in the first half is there in the third quarter. You look great at QB. You kind of get Deuce going as well. It was good to see some downfield shots being completed. So it kind of all fell together in that third quarter. What changed between end of quarter 2 and the beginning of that third quarter?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to know exactly. I asked that question to Climate and the players that we got a chance to talk to, but it sounds like they got a pretty stern talking to at halftime. Chris Kleiman was not very shy about saying that they were not good in the first half offensively. And so I think whether it was just zeroing in more focus, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but everything started to click more, where early in the game, I don't even put a lot of it on Will Howard. He was kind of running for his life on a lot of those plays, and really did some good in showing how much he can hit the safety valve on those plays when he's about to get trucked by somebody coming in. I mean, he knew exactly where to go with some of those dump offs, and that was impressive, but that was keeping the offense from really getting in rhythm. I really think it was letting him be able to throw the ball down the field that got things going. And like that throw that he had to Sebastian Taylor was amazing. It's placed as well as you can possibly throw it. Probably had Malik Knowles honestly more open on the play as well, just from what we could see in the press box. But still, if you're going to put the ball right there, it doesn't matter. And that is what you needed to see. It was like just what the doctor ordered: some confidence, throwing the ball down the field. You got a receiver involved in Sebastian Taylor. Malik Knowles at least had one catch in there, right? I can't remember if it was more than that, but at least one. So baby steps, with the offense, but the way it was rolling and humming like that, that's what you hope at its highest end it can be. And to me, restored some confidence in what the upside of this team can be. And hey, maybe Will Howard, if that is going to continue, can actually lead K-State to a Big 12 championship game.
I would echo what John said, and I thought they got him some short and easy throws as well in the second half, some simple curl routes that got him in a groove. And then once he connected on that pass for 37 yards to Taylor, I thought he really took off. Like, you could just see him in a rhythm and in a groove, and he actually completed his last 12 passes of the game. He went 12 for 12 for 173 yards, averaging 14.4 yards per pass attempt down the stretch of that game. So, and the thing, guys, that John, you kind of hit on as well, that I was most impressed with, is he went through his progressions on multiple different times. So early on in the game, there were a couple times he just locked on to his receiver. Malik Knowles had a quick slant, and you could tell it wasn't there, and he still tried to force it in there. He didn't look anywhere else. But in the second half, there were multiple times where he stood in the pocket, and you could see his eyes moving around and eventually finding somebody open. And that's usually the thing with true freshmen or young quarterbacks. They don't have the time. They panic. They don't go through all their reads. They'll just throw the ball away or go to their first read. He went through different reads and progressions. And then what John talked about is when there were multiple times when KU brought pressure unblocked, and he sensed it and knew right where to get rid of the football. There was a time where he dumped it to Deuce Vaughn, who got 25 plus yards, where the guy came untouched and was going to hit him, and he got rid of it just in time, knew exactly where to go, where his safety valve was at. That's just things you don't see usually from a true freshman. And that really impressed me. And I think a lot of that comes from, guys. I went back and looked at Will Howard after the TCU game. I went back and watched his high school tape, and just wanted to watch his highlights and see what he did at the high school level in Pennsylvania. And I looked at his rivals profile again, and I was reminded that he was offered by every single Ivy League school out there. So, you know, he had Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Columbia, all of them offered him to play football there. So this is a kid that's incredibly smart and has the playbook picked up, and he knows where to go with the football, where to make the reads. So the upside is tremendous because he has the physical talent, and you know it's there mentally. And so I think he can be a star at Kansas State. And like John said, I just feel much better about the upside of the offense. I don't want to make too much of it. It was Kansas second half, but just the way that he went through reads, progressions, or things you don't see often from a freshman. And you think maybe his confidence will start to soar. And if he can continue that, you know, K-State certainly has an opportunity to play in Arlington here in several weeks.
Well, you mentioned, you know, Sebastian Taylor having a couple catches there that especially one longer downfield. Are you surprised still at the struggles of Malik Knowles? He had a couple balls put on him, at least one of which, if not two of which, it could have been a score. He just doesn't seem to be able to put it all together for a game. Obviously, he's incredibly talented. I mean, he's a dude who can also make a Sports Center worthy catch just from an athletic perspective, but he has just yet to really put together any kind of complete game so far this season.
Yeah, and it was somewhat discouraging, I thought, to hear this week that he had another injury that was holding him back for the bye week. He was able to practice the week leading up to Kansas, but that, according to Messingham, said there has not been a period since they have been here really where he's been healthy for 5-6 weeks in a row, you know, to be able to actually really grow and develop. And that's held him back a lot. And I also think not having a traditional offseason probably hurts him. You know, he's a guy that I think they want to put on more weight and just try and bulk up and hope that makes him more durable. And he did still, I think he had gained like 14 pounds in the offseason. So it's not like that didn't happen, but would have benefited more from that being there. And yeah, I just, you know, a lot of these balls, especially what we saw on Saturday, I wouldn't say were like flat out drops, but they were catchable balls that, you know, if you're going to be a number one receiver in the Big 12, you've got to go get at least some of those. And that just doesn't seem to be happening. You're right. It just feels like something's a half tick off. He did have a really good connection with Skyler, as we've seen at points in his career. So maybe it'll take him some time with Will Howard, but I don't know. Right now, I consider whatever you get from Malik Knowles gravy. You know, I mean, you just have to move forward with the rest of the guys on the offense. And if Malik pops in and has one of his huge games, which he still very well could, you know, by the end of the year, then you take it and run.
Yeah, that was his 15th game since the start of last season that he's played in, and 8 of those 15, Corey's had one catch or less. And, you know, you just need more from a guy with that type of talent level that, you know, I think his ceiling is high, and it's not meeting there. He's not reaching what his ceiling and potential could be. And to me, it looks kind of like a confidence issue at this point. I think it might be in his head a little bit. You know, he had those drops earlier in the year. We know he's talented, but now it's in his head. And when there's a difficult throw made that's catchable ball, he's just not coming up with the play. And to John's point, he had a couple opportunities. Now, the first one, when I initially saw it live, I thought, you know, gosh, he dropped another one. Now, that was a pretty good defensive play. I think the defender maybe got his hand on the ball in the end zone. So that would have been a tough one. Second one was another nice throw by Will Howard in the end zone that could have been a touchdown right on the boundary, and he wasn't able to pull that in. And if he's going to be, you know, meet the talent level that we think he has, he's going to have to start making some of those difficult catches. Heck, the most difficult catch he might have had was a curl route where he had to come back and dive and pull that in, and he made that catch. It's just a matter of consistency, and hopefully they can get his confidence up. I'd like to see K-State maybe hit him with some simple bubble routes, or get him the ball in space on, you know, some short, easy catch and throws, and let him get his confidence up that way, get him in the groove early on. And maybe that'll fix things, because they need help at receiver. We've talked about it. You know, Sebastian Taylor has really been the guy far and away at the receiver position that's produced, and they haven't had much else outside of Phillip Brooks. And so they need Malik Knowles to step his game up.
The last 3 games of defense has been pretty salty. I mean, you can obviously tell that they're playing a kind of downhill aggressive. They like to get pressure on the quarterback. Obviously, there's concern with A.J. Parker going out, but another great defensive performance. This really kind of seems like a team that, as they are developing a young quarterback, that they can really lean on defense. Moving towards West Virginia next week, I mean, is this – I know it's hard with Kansas because, you know, what they're throwing out there, it's not exactly a world beater offense. I mean, their best game as a 21-point loss in Big 12 play. I mean, come on, but K-State's defense really seems to really be holding things together.
Yeah, I mean, outside of one drive, basically in that game in non-garbage time, I mean, they let Kansas go down the field for the one TD drive. There's another drive where Kansas marches down to, kind of bit by bit, and they were just barely picking up first downs, and it winds up in a missed field goal. So I suppose you could throw that in there, but outside of that, there were no real problems at all. I mean, I thought K-State did a pretty good job. I thought, Wyatt Hubert was somebody who was really impactful yesterday. I thought he was getting in the backfield and making life pretty tough a lot. He was somebody that really stood out to me. But again, another part of this is like Kansas just gifting you a pick six on just a horribly executed and designed screen.
Didn't even look. Quarterback didn't even look.
Don't get much easier than that. Yeah. For Justin Gardner, just a walk-in pick six. And it was like sort of in the same vein as like Danzel McDaniel at Oklahoma once upon a time. So yeah, I thought the defense just continued to really do what they do. I mean, they've been pretty dang good since you go back to the fourth quarter of the Oklahoma game. I'm trying to do some math, like 12, 13 quarters at this point. They've been very, very good. And obviously that will still, I think, have to be the calling card of this team moving forward until we feel more confident in Will Howard doing some of what he did in the third quarter consistently.
Yeah, over their last 13 quarters of football, dating back to that fourth quarter against Oklahoma, they've given up 49 points on 43 drives, which is about 1.14 points per opponent drive. And to put that in perspective, that would put K-State on the overall season in the top 5 in the country in points per drive. So efficiency, defense, that's probably one of the better metrics you could use. That's how good the defense has been. Feels like a long time ago we were talking on the Sunday after the Arkansas State game about how surprised we were with how poorly the defense played, and maybe the secondary isn't nearly at the level we thought, and now that's probably their deepest position on the team, and where I feel the most confident is at the corner position. Corey, you mentioned AJ Parker going down. Obviously you don't want to lose him. He's a stud. You hope he's back very soon, but there was a position they were going to lose somebody. They probably have enough depth there to overcome it for a week or two. You'd obviously like to at least have him back by that Oklahoma State game in a couple weeks. So hopefully that's just a rolled ankle and he's back on the field. But when you look at the depth, they have 8-9 guys on the defensive line they can rotate in and out. They have 6 corners that they rotate in and out. They have so much depth at both those positions, which is so crucial in the Big 12. And, to John's point, I think they're going to continue to carry this team, them and the special teams. And the offense just has to be average. And they've got a good enough defense and special teams unit to win football games in this league. So as long as the offense isn't turning the ball over and that they're putting a few touchdowns on the board, this defense is good enough to get K-State to the Big 12 title.
Well, as you look around the Big 12, the only other undefeated, at least in conference play, is Oklahoma State. They squeaked past Iowa State. Interesting game, not always pretty in that contest. Still impressed with the Cowboys, seeming like that's 2 weeks away for K-State. But I mean, that one looms pretty large. Obviously, you go on the road to play a game West Virginia team that's 500 in league play right now. But holy cow, you kind of set yourself up for college game day and potentially a top 15 kind of matchup if you can get one next week.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, so Oklahoma State, they have Bedlam this week. Is that right, Corey?
I can double check. I think that sounds right, though.
They play Oklahoma State plays Texas and Stillwater.
Texas.
They play Texas. Okay. So they play Texas. So if they win that game, and then I think they have Oklahoma. I'm trying to put the path together for an undefeated Oklahoma State by the time that game comes around. And I thought
so it's they get Texas and then us.
Texas and then us. All right,
and then Bedlam's after.
So if they win that game and if K-State is able to find a way to take care of business in Morgantown, then yeah, I mean you're talking about an awesome matchup there. I did see that there's another game on the list. Is it Clemson, Notre Dame? Maybe there's a game on the list that's going to take College Game Day. I mean, that's just
virtual College Game Day. Keep in mind,
right.
So it's not quite the same. So yeah,
right. John, you don't have faith that Notre Dame could go down to at Georgia Tech next weekend and lose that game?
Well,
I mean, Georgia Tech only lost to Clemson 73-7.
I saw Clemson get 70 ball laid on them, so like, I'm not confident in that. But yeah, I mean, I feel very similar to the TCU game, like the feeling to me going into play West Virginia, because I think TCU is a better team, that K-State beat in that game. I think West Virginia is a more difficult trip when you're going all the way out there, especially in COVID times now where some of the travel's been cut down or different or whatever. And West Virginia's just been a team that K-State's really struggled with. They haven't beaten them since 2015, I think it was. Morgan Burns kickoff return touchdown to win that game. Ever since then, it's just been a really tricky place to play when K-State goes to Morgantown. And even when they've been in Manhattan, just games that you feel like K-State should have won and has not.
They've been ugly games.
Yeah. So, you can't discount all of that. This is something we need to see happen if K-State is going to be a team that has a legitimate chance. It's a must-win game in my opinion, if you want to get to Arlington for the Big 12 championship game. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And they have been snake bitten against West Virginia. And my first year doing the show with you guys, Powercat Game Day, was 2016 when we made the trip up to Morgantown. And that was a game K-State dominated until the fourth quarter. They were up 16-3, and then they ended up losing it. Matthew McCrane missed a potential game-winning field goal from about 44 yards out at the end. And that one certainly stung.
A bad drop that would have been a touchdown that would have won the game.
Yeah. So they've had some difficult games. Obviously, last year was a painful one. You felt like K-State would dominate against a bad West Virginia team. The very first play of the game, they connect on a 70-yard touchdown to Dalton Schoen, and they just never got things going after that and lost that game in the fourth quarter. It's a huge game, and we're going to say that from every week the rest of the way because K-State's undefeated and top the Big 12 standings with Oklahoma State. So every game is gigantic. But if you're going to get to Arlington, you have to win this game because this is a winnable one. The schedule gets very tough down the stretch when you've got Oklahoma State, Texas still looming, and at Iowa State. It's one you can't afford to drop. And so you got to hope K-State can go up there and win this game. It's going to be I agree with John. I think it's similar to TCU. I mean, they have a good defense. They have a very good front four. They're better than TCU probably defensively. I actually think TCU's offense might be slightly better than West Virginia. Jarrett Deggy hasn't played that great yet this season. They haven't really gotten things going. They lose to Texas Tech yesterday. Texas Tech didn't have their top two receivers. TJ Vasher, he was out for the game. They lost to Roderick Thompson, their leading rusher, midway through the game. And then their number two running back went down with injury in that game. And yet Texas Tech found a way to win. The winnable game for K-State. They can't turn the ball over. West Virginia's got a solid defense. They take care of the football. It's a game K-State should win. And you got to hope K-State's defense can force West Virginia into a couple turnovers to the special teams play. And then we talked about, you win this game, boy, that sets up a fun week leading up to November 7th against the Cowboys. And the thing that stinks about it all, guys, is, not being able to have a packed stadium for an atmosphere, in prime time against Oklahoma State for that one, because you're talking about K-State wins next week. They're probably going to be in the top 15 in the country, like you mentioned, Corey. And if Oklahoma State beats Texas, I think they will, they're going to be in the top 5. They're number 6 right now. So, it'd be a huge, huge game. So hopefully K-State can take care of business in Morgantown.
Well, it's weird now that it's unfortunate that Oklahoma State beats Texas, and now people will be like, it's not that big a deal. They beat Texas the way that the Big 12 has been kind of upset this year. All right, well, obviously huge things potentially ahead for K-State, a place that no one expected to be after week 1, but it does feel good to stomp your rival and 4 straight wins, and it's all kind of positive momentum right now. So we usually kind of finish things up looking around the NFL. You get snow day game in Denver, Chiefs Broncos. They're already clearing the field this morning, man. Like you get Le'Veon Bell potentially added to a Chiefs offense. Clyde Edwards-Helaire went crazy in the rain last week. What are you looking forward to in the Snow Bowl at Mile High?
I am looking for Patrick Mahomes to do his what was it? He says I can spin it in anything. Was that this game, Cole, last year when he said that?
Well, I don't remember what his exact quote was, John, but when they played Denver and Kansas City last year, we were getting pounded by a snowstorm, and he looked awesome. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. I've always thought a kid that played his high school football in Texas would really struggle in snow elements, but the Colts game and the playoffs, when it was so cold and snowing, he put up monstrous numbers, and he did the same against the Broncos last year. So he somehow excels in the snow, and it's pretty incredible.
It did seem like last week in the rain a little bit that there was in Buffalo that was affecting him some throwing the ball too, which brings you back to again. Yeah. How does that work with the snow that it didn't seem to bother him? But yeah, he was running around. was like the field mics, just caught him like he was running around saying, I'll spin this bleep in everything or in anything. So that's there's your Patrick Mahomes quote for the day. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's such a ho-hum game. I hadn't really thought a whole heck of a lot about it to this point. I guess with Drew Lock being back, that makes the Broncos at least a team with a pulse as opposed to before.
Ish.
But I will say that the thing with this game for the Chiefs is they have had a strong element of playing up or down to their level of competition throughout the year so far this year. I was not shocked that they won the Buffalo game somewhat comfortably, because when they have these games where they're really challenged, they're pretty good. And then when they have these games against bad AFC West teams where they can relax a little bit and take their foot off the gas, things have not gone as well. So that would be my primary concern today.
Corey, you know why I can't be – I'm sorry, Corey, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you know why I can't be a cocky Chiefs fan? Because 2 weeks ago, I sat on here when they were getting ready to play the Raiders and said to you, I'm not worried about this game. I finally turned into cocky Chiefs fan. I even said – the Chiefs don't lose to the AFC West, so that's not going to happen. I look for a dominant win, and then look what happens in that game and transpires. I can't be the cocky Chiefs fan. I tried to do it with John, and I'm going to try to be less negative and pessimistic, though, for this one. But, yeah, I always like watching football on the snow, so I don't mind it. I like to, I'm looking forward to watching the game today. I was impressed, obviously, with what Denver did to New England last week with Cam Newton back. I mean, I don't know, Corey, you're a Denver fan. The Denver defense has looked pretty good the last couple of weeks. I mean, you look what they did to the Titans in week 1. Look how good the Titans offense has been on the season, and Denver's defense held them to 16 points? So
that defense is fun to watch. It's just that the offense is brutal to watch, especially, no Sutton, Fant's been out, Locke's been out. So it's been a little bit of an uphill push when you're starting Jeff Driscoll at quarterback. But I kind of thought
Dalton Reisner's been out too, hasn't he?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So I was kind of on board as a Denver fan when they were dropping the first few, and then they had a chance to play the Jets, and they come from behind to win that one. I'm like, no, we're tanking for Trevor now. Like, what are you doing? But that kind of sneaking back into being competitive. I don't think they're great. I don't think they're going to beat Kansas City, but changes it a little bit with a few more guys back on offense.
Yeah, unfortunately, Corey, I don't think anybody, even if they try, it could be worse than the Jets.
No.
So I think the Jets have that number 1 pick locked up. The Vikings might be able to try, but they've fallen apart on tough times.
So if you're Trevor Lawrence, do you pull an Eli Manning and refuse to play for the Jets?
The one thing holding me back from that is it's in New York, and I would enjoy personally the New York lifestyle there.
I think you'd take the money. Like, I saw some talk about, going back to Clemson maybe for another year. That's too risky to me. I mean, I think you take that top first overall draft pick, take that money, get the clock started on your NFL contract. And I'm sure Adam Gase, who's a disaster for a head coach, will be gone.
Could be
so
fine.
Hopefully you have a different quarterback. And then, John, like you mentioned, New York, think of the endorsement opportunities if he does do relatively well there, and all the marketing chances and the money that can be made from that. So they just need a change in leadership, maybe a new general manager as well. But if they can get those things changed, I think he goes there and plays and goes into the draft and is the number 1 overall pick with the Jets, and he'll probably be okay. But they need some changes internally.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what Eric Bieniemy does with him as a quarterback.
Yeah, right.
There's going to be a lot of people beating down the doors for Eric Bieniemy. So.
All right. Well, gentlemen, as always, it's fun. It's always fun when you trounce your rival. And so many more Kansas players playing for K-State than Kansas in that game. Good to see them fired up afterwards. That's a big win. So have a fantastic weekend. We'll do this again as Cats take on West Virginia, riding a 4-game winning streak, undefeated in conference play. Who'd have thought? We'll take it. We'll look forward to another 11 a.m. kickoff. We'll be back here next Sunday for Power Cat Game Day. We'll see you guys. Have a good weekend.
Sounds good.